The Nikon Z6III has film simulations. Not exactly. It kind of does, kind of doesn't. Anybody that's been following me for a while, you guys might know I got obsessed with the ZF, and then that got me into the Z8, and then the Z6III made even more sense. We'll get into it, but this is mainly going to be about the film sims, quote unquote. There's two profiles in here that personally I gravitate to way more than all the Fuji cameras I've ever used. I use the pure profile a lot, which is, it reminds me of Fujifilm's Classic Neg, but with more color fidelity. It's not as like intense, and you can turn it down, you can make all these tweaks, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. Is through their desktop app, you're able to customize their profiles and import them into your camera, into your Z6III specifically. I don't know why no one has talked about this. All right guys, in my quick menu over here, I have all my picture controls set. So you see, these are Nikon standard picture controls. And then we get into the creative look. So you see right here, I have my custom profiles. This is the original one that I made. That's the Cam Mackie Rambler. Throughout this video too, I'll be sure to pop in all the JPEGs, but you'll kind of see how my colors are inspired from the original JPEGs. A lot of the times, I would do an edit on a raw file, and then I would go back to the Nikon JPEG, and I'd be like, oh, I like the JPEG more. Which you kind of hate as an artist when the JPEG looks better, because it's like, where did I mess up? I messed up at some point. Like, a JPEG should not look better than my raw edit. All right, guys, I think this video is gonna blow a lot of your guys' minds. Honestly, I don't know if we should call these film simulations or not, but I don't think it matters, because this is pretty much the biggest reason why, you know, once I tried the Nikon ZF and now the Nikon Z6III, specifically because how it interconnects the software. You know, when I first started to play with all of this and their picture profiles, I realized they're kind of better than Fujifilm's film simulations. So that's why I kind of been calling them film simulations. We're gonna go over the Nikon Z6III and how you could do it in the camera and do all these custom settings. That's what's magical. Again, these are called the Nikon's Creative Picture Controls. We're gonna start off with Nikon's NX Studio software. So through the software, we'll be able to go through all the Nikon's creative picture profiles. I think the number one thing when people first try this in camera is they think the profiles look tacky, which I also thought as well, until I went in, I started to make adjustments, and there's one thing I did that unlocked the possibilities with it, which again, through this software, we'll be able to go through all the creative picture profiles, and I can show you guys how unique all of them are, which ones I like, which ones I don't like, how I make tweaks. And then again, we'll save them, put them to the Nikon Z6III, and then I'll show you how you can do it in camera even. You don't have to use the software if you don't want to. Guys, who else has incredibly oily eyeballs? I don't know what it is. My glasses get so dirty. Oh my God, I can see. All right, let's just start with this one. So you can see, this is straight out of camera. This is literally how I shot it. There's no edits to this at all. So let me just show you what the standard color profile looks like. So that's what we're getting. But now let's go through the creative picture controls. Let's just go with this first one, Dream. Some of you guys might love this. This looks like a freaking Polaroid. Like, this is insane. Let's go to the next one here. Let's go to Morning. And this is where people start going through these and they're like, oh, these look tacky. Like, these look horrible. In reality though, the secret to fixing this and making them just like insanely amazing and making you want to leave other film simulations behind, one simple trick, and that's just the effect level here. So I'm just gonna go down to 50%. Boom. Literally just turning it down. Personally, I love that Nikon lets us go overboard with it, because sometimes maybe, you know, some people want that look. But you'll see, we'll go to 90%, then we'll go to 80%, 70%, 60%, 50%, 40, 30. Let's just go to 60% real quick. And then I'll go back to the standard profile. You can see how much these creative picture profiles are doing. Insanely fun. Again, if we go back to the Dream, I think this looks kind of cool at 10. If you put an old lens on here, like for instance, I have the Polar Pro Light Leak lens. I think this lens paired with this profile would actually look really fun. It would look super retro. All you need to do is add some film grain, and then you're rocking and rolling. But even on this, if we go down to 50%, you can see we're still getting like a beautiful look. Again, let's go back to standard here. It's night and day. It's night and day. Nikon, they knocked it out of the park. Now, let me show you guys my favorite one, or a few of my favorite ones. Then we'll go over how you can customize them and transfer them and start rocking and rolling with that. We'll do the second favorite one first. is denim. We're turned all the way up to 11. We're past 10 basically on here. We're 100%. So it's overcooking it in my opinion. But while it's overcooking it, it gives us a moment to see what it's doing. You can see our blues are getting a little bit of a teal look. Like let's go back to standard real quick. The colors all look pretty realistic to real life. And then when we go back to denim, our blues kind of have a tealish look. The magic is when you go and you turn it down. So at 50%, this looks stunning. This looks absolutely amazing. Let's even go to 70%. That looks incredible. Let's start going through some of these settings. If you export it, again, you go right up here, you can export. We'll get into this later in the video. All these settings you can import back into your camera. And again, why it's kind of good to do it in the software here is because, you're actually be able to bring your images up. Like this is how I would do it. Try to, do a setting that you'll think you'll like. I then put it into the camera. I went and did a photo shoot with it. And then when I brought it back, I decided if I liked it or not. There were some tweaks I had to make because in camera, they looked fine. But then when I imported them, they look kind of different. So that's just the way it goes, especially when you import your phone and stuff. So on here, we're getting a larger example and we're seeing all the color fidelity here as if we're editing it. And that's what's kind of important. Quick sharpening, this kind of controls all the sharpening right here. So personally, I don't like super sharp images. So, you could just adjust all your sharpening from here, or you could go in and you can start adjusting it through here. You can see in here, we could boost our saturation. We could do highlight protection if we want. All this, I'm gonna kind of just keep at 0. Now, from my understanding, all of the ones that are in black over here in the menu, I believe are settings that will actually import over to the camera. But then when we go over to these settings here, I think the grayed out ones are the ones that won't transfer over to the camera, which I'm kind of bummed about because say if we were going into curves here, I would be able to go in and do kind of a filmic curve here. Back in the day, guys, most of us fashion photographers, I'm talking about like 5 to 10 years ago, we would do a lot of our color grading in the curves adjustment. This is where a lot of like the secrets go down and, high-end retouching. Sadly though, these curve adjustments do not import over into the camera. Nikon never figured out how to import these into the camera. Oh my gosh, that would take over the game. I know some cameras are getting LUT support, which is totally cool. But personally, when it comes to stills, I kind of like going this way because the difference between LUTs and this type of way of making profiles is LUTs are kind of based off of standardized log profile. So when we go and shoot in RAW and stills, we don't have that standardized log workflow. And so it's better to do these type of adjustments. So, but anyways, I turned off those levels because again, it's not going to transfer over anyways. This next profile is my favorite and most used profile. That's Pure. I love this profile so much. My latest presets that I made for Lightroom are inspired by this. They're not like a one-off, they're not like a copycat, but they're heavily inspired by it. So obviously off the bat, 100%, they look awful. Like this Pure profile looks just awful, looks horrendous. But again, if we go and turn down 50%, look at this. This is gorgeous. Let's do 60%. So again, real quick, let's go back to standard. So again, this is straight out of camera. And then this is the Pure profile turned down to 60%. Absolutely gorgeous. My only gripe with this is it kind of lifts the exposure a little bit. So I found when I'm shooting RAW, I'll underexpose in camera because it looks good on the profile. But then when I import it, all the shots are pretty underexposed. I never found an issue with it though, because the files coming out of the Nikon ZF and the Nikon Z6III, no matter how much I've underexposed it, I never clipped the blacks or had noisy blacks. And since this profile is a little bit desaturated, I'm gonna boost the saturation up a little bit. And then I'm also gonna increase the contrast a little bit. And then let me go back to exposure compensation. And you can see I'm just knocking it down about half a stop. Let's go a little bit more, 0.6 of a full stop here. I'm gonna make sure I turn that off though when I import it into the camera. Now let me show you guys how I transfer this back into my camera. Again, we'll be able to actually shoot with this profile and I'll be able to put it onto my Nikon Z6III over here. So we're gonna go up here to the custom picture control. You see we have two options, import custom and export. Obviously, you can do most of this within the actual camera itself. But again, when you're doing it, you have to kind of look through the viewfinder or whatever your shot is to do it. When you do it through the software, you can actually, take a photo that you like, that's like a common type of photo that you shoot, and you can make it directly in front of you. So personally, I like doing it this way more. So I'm gonna go to my picture controls over here. I'm going to do add to custom picture control. I'm gonna call this, let's call it Rambler Pure. We're gonna do okay. From here, I'm gonna go to our custom picture control. I'm gonna do export custom picture control here. And you see we have all these profiles that I've made that I've been messing with, but I'm just gonna use this one moving forward. You see we have two options here. We have export to file or export to card. If you export to file, you can simply just, go import a card and just slap it on there from there. But I'm gonna take my Angelbird 256 gigabyte SD card. I'm gonna do export to card. So you see when we go into our card here, Nikon custom PC, that's our custom picture profile right there. All of our information saved onto that. I didn't have to navigate to where the card was. It just knew that there was an SD card in there and it found the exact Nikon folder and where to put it. See, I got the Nikon Z6III here. This has become one of my favorite hybrid cameras outside of it not having open gate. But we're just gonna put the SD card into here. From here, I'm just gonna go into my menus. We're gonna go down to manage picture control, go down to load, copy to camera. Right there. And you see, there's our Rambler Pure profile. You see I already have a few in there that I've been playing with. I'm just going to put it into the C4. We're just going to click OK right there. And there we go. Let's go up to set picture control. And you see, these are all of our custom profiles right there. So let's just do Rambler Pure again. And there we go. There's my custom profiles. I think something cool that you guys could do is you could go in, you could set different levels. You see down here, it says adjust. If we click right, so I'm going to click right. There you go. All of your settings are right here. But you see when you make the changes in here, you can't see the changes that you're doing. So this is what's cool about the Nikon Desktop NX software is you can make all these tweaks while looking at your image. I'm gonna turn down the effects level to 50. Everything else looks pretty fine on there. So I'm just gonna click OK. And there we go. So I just made a subtle change to it and now we're ready to rock and roll.